Thank you very much. We hope you've enjoyed the break. We've tried to incorporate those in throughout the year. And we're going to jump right back to our agenda, starting with item 20. Stephen Mahler, Bruce Deterra.
Commissioners, item 20 has been pulled from the agenda.
Stephen, thank you. Item 21. Carrie?
Commissioners, agenda item 21 is an action item. With the enactment of SB 486, the Commission has an expanded role in the review and approval of the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan, the ITSP. Specifically, 486 directs Caltrans to submit the ITSP to the Commission for approval on or before June 30th, 2015. In an effort to guide the development of the ITSP, Caltrans presented an overview of the work plan and timeline for the ITSP at the December 14, 2014 Commission meeting. At that time, staff recommended the Commission consider providing Caltrans with an outline of expectations to ensure that the ITSP addresses the most critical needs regardless of modal choice or system condition. Staff recommends the Commission direct staff to transmit the letter included in your board book to Caltrans outlining the Commission's expectations for the upcoming update of the ITSP. This letter includes the following recommendations. Interregional transportation needs must be clearly defined in the plan to provide the basis for recommendations provided in the ITSP. Focus routes were developed in 1998 in response to SB 45. Since that time, legislation has been enacted requiring a new approach to assessing and addressing interregional travel. While previous iterations of the ITSP were highway-centric, the Commission expects that the next ITSP will evaluate the multimodal transportation corridor network, including integration of high-speed rail, intercity rail and transit systems, and managed lane connectivity among regions. Forecasted population growth and development patterns should be considered in the preparation of the ITSP to ensure identified interregional priorities holistically and comprehensively move the state towards achievement of statewide transportation goals and objectives. The ITSP should be designed to support a balanced and sustainable interregional transportation system through the alignment with other statewide plans. The ITSP should prominently address interregional priorities for better managing the transportation system, addressing gap closures, operational improvements, and freight routes. Based on input from the Commissioners, staff also recommends amending the draft letter to include the following language. Given the significant impact of goods movement on California and the national economy, the ITSP must recognize the interrelationship of the system of systems in the planning of the ITSP, placing a priority on high-volume freight corridors and border ports of entry, such as the I-5 corridor. That concludes my presentation. Staff recommends the Commission to advise staff of any additional comments to Caltrans on the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan and approve the attached letter with proposed amended language.
Second.
Thank you, Carrie. That was a motion by Commissioner Medaffer with a second by Commissioner Gilmetti. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Assemi.
Just a question. Does this program consider integration into our borders, Mexico and all the neighboring states?
Correct. That last additional amended language does talk about the border ports of entry.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Carrie. Moving on to item 22, Juan Guzman.
Thank you. Commissioners, item 22 is an information item. It's an opportunity to provide comments to the agency on their transit and intercity rail program. As I mentioned at the briefing, the agency will be publishing their final guidelines in 2 weeks, followed right after that by a call for projects. And I know you had several questions during our briefings, so I'll turn it over to Deputy Secretary, Edison first.
Chad, welcome. Perhaps there's room at one of the chairs. Yes, thank you, Teresa. Chad, you are now Teresa.
Thank you very much. And Mitch Weiss will also be joining me for the last half of the presentation. We'll keep this brief.
No, Mitch is not welcome here.
The Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program draft guidelines were submitted on December 19th to the legislature and posted on our website. We have also submitted those to the Commission, and today I'd like to give a brief overview, and then we welcome any questions. The cap and trade auction proceeds related to the Transit Intercity Rail Capital Program consist of the $25 million in 14-15 budget appropriations, as well as a 10% continuous appropriation beginning in fiscal year 15-16. The governor's budget has estimated that at $100 million for the 15-16 period, and so our upcoming call for projects will be based on a $125 million estimate. So that is that we have a 2-year initial call for projects, and that's what we will be working with. We have gone through many workshops with stakeholders and public workshops in order to get feedback on the guidelines. We had a number of those as early as August before we started drafting the guidelines, and then we've continued that process after the discussion draft was released in the final draft in December. We just had a number of workshops this week. Our 2 statutorily required workshops were in Southern California on Tuesday and here in Northern California yesterday in Sacramento. We are hoping to receive our comments no later than January 30th, and then we will be trying to get our guidelines adopted on February 6th. CalSTA is responsible for both the guidelines development and the project selection. That we will then present that list to the CTC at its August meeting, and so we will be coming with a recommended project list for the August 26th CTC meeting. We expect to have a call for projects on February 9th, followed by applications due 2 months later on April 10th, and we are trying to get our projects evaluated and a list of approved projects developed by June 30th. We have an initial multi-year program covering 2 years of funding. The fund estimates may be refined based on the auction results. Right now we have a specific requirement on the 14-15 funds, the first $25 million. Those need to be allocated by the Commission by June 30th of 2016 and expended and liquidated by June 30th of 2020. The continuous appropriation funds do not have those same dates on them. The eligible applicants are really a wide range of public agencies, including JPAs. The details of that are in our guidelines. These are agencies that operate existing or planned regularly scheduled service covering intercity rail and its feeder bus services, commuter rail, commuter bus, and bus or rail transit services. So it's a wide spectrum of the agencies out there that are providing transit and intercity rail. Also, agencies that have planning responsibility for future service are eligible. The projects that are eligible all have to demonstrate that they will achieve a GHG reduction. They include, but aren't limited to, the project categories listed here: rail capital projects, the intercity and commuter rail projects that are focused on a combination of increasing service levels, improving reliability, and decreasing travel time, really focused on increasing ridership, and then rail integration, implementation, and bus transit investments. The eligible, we're asking for a small number of, we're expecting to select a small number of transformational projects, and we're asking that agencies submit no more than one major capital project and one smaller scale project. No one project will be selected for more than a third of the funding, and that is our that should allow us to analyze the applications more rapidly. The match is required, but is not required, but leverage is desirable, and then we have to have a clear commitment to fund new service. Mitch, would you like to continue?
I'd love to, Chad. Thank you.
Mitch, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be back. We're working on the application right now with Caltrans providing a tremendous assistance on that. And the application, as you would expect, will ask for information about scope, schedule, cost of the project, but there are a couple of other things that we want to highlight. For projects that are ongoing, we're going to ask for funding information on ongoing operation and maintenance. We're going to ask about the ability to absorb cost overruns because we're not funding them from this program. And then we're going to also ask for segments of the project that might be scalable or separable. If we can't fund the whole project, what are the phases that we might be able to fund or segments we might be able to fund? Similarly, are there aspects of the project that might be grown to expand to, for example, a whole system? In terms of selection criteria, our primary criteria are based on the objectives of the program in statute, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, increasing ridership, integration with other operators, and improving safety. There's a number of secondary criteria also based on what's in statute. These include supporting implementation of a sustainable community strategy, also benefit to disadvantaged communities, and geographic equity, amongst many. In project selection, we will be looking at how well a project meets those primary and secondary criteria. In addition, we'll be looking at a few other things. One is the risk, both in terms of delivering the benefit that's promised and also just in terms of delivering the project on schedule, on budget, and with the scope that is in the application. We'll be looking in greater terms in the need and benefit of the project readiness, and again, the leverage of funds with particular regard to other greenhouse gas reduction programs and discretionary funds, for example, funds that might otherwise be spent on a highway. There are a number of administrative considerations in terms of administrative considerations in terms of programming, allocating, project delivery. Those are modeled in our guidelines along lines of other commission programs. There are a couple of things I would note. As Chad mentioned, should the auction proceeds be coming in higher or lower than is forecast in the budget, we'll be able to adjust our programming based on that. And the last thing I would point out is there's considerable reporting. This is being developed by ARB and is going to be required of all the fund recipients. With that, I would note that, again, comments must be received by January 31st, and I'd be happy to, Chad and I, happy to answer any questions you have.
Great. Chad and Mitch, thank you very much. Questions from commissioners? We do have 3 question cards after that, so I would encourage Ann Richmond, Patricia Chin, and Monique Webster to start making their way forward. And Vice Chair Dunn, you have a question or comment?
I would have been interested in public comments first, but...
then we can do that if that's your pleasure.
Yeah, I think
Great.
I would like to hear what they...
Good, let's do that. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
So let's hear from Ann Richmond, Patricia Chin, and Monique Webster. Again, each of you have up to 90 seconds, but don't worry, I won't start until you do. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Ann Richmond with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. And we are very pleased with these guidelines in that they are broad and inclusive, and they offer a good deal of flexibility for a range of projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We do, however, request a few modifications to ensure that key projects in the Bay Area would be eligible and could compete for these funds. One modification that we would request is that the guidelines not preclude the selection of projects that have already advertised or even awarded contracts. Many very important multi-year projects are expected to compete for these funds, and we would ask that they be allowed to do so, even if they have awarded or advertised contracts. Another modification that we would request is that the guidelines should enable multi-year commitments, such as a full funding grant agreement type arrangement, to provide predictable support to projects that may continue over many years. The final modification that we would ask is that the guidelines would allow for letter of no prejudice type arrangements to provide more flexibility for the kinds of large transformational projects that we understand the program is seeking. We have submitted comments to these effects both to the Commission and to the agency staff, and we look forward to continuing to work with you all as this program develops. Thank you very much.
And thank you and MTC for commenting today. Next is Patricia Chen from LA Metro and Monique Webster from San Francisco MTA. Patricia, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Guardino, Commissioners, Undersecretary. I want to share with you today that Metro is very excited about the cap and trade programs and eager to partner with the state to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We did want to share one concern that we have with the draft guidelines for the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, which is the limit on the number of applications to just one major and one minor application per sponsor. In addition to being a funding agency, Metro is a bus and rail operator. We serve over 9 million people. I kind of thumbed through the SCO report on the eligible operators in the LC Top program, which I'm guessing is similar eligible applicants. And I saw some applicants that served less than 15,000 people. And I don't want to downplay the importance of those needs, but I did want to kind of create a perspective of this many people being served in one application and this many people being served in still one application. We understand that the agency needs to go about the process very efficiently because time is limited. But just one point of consideration is that we do not yet know how much funding might come into the GGRF in FY16. There's an estimate out there of $100 million, but it could come in 2 or 3 times as much.
Time.
And I think, are we getting to time?
Yes, we are. If you could wrap it up with one good sentence, please.
I just think that the agency would be in a better position to expedite funding for the best projects to have the maximum benefit if there were not really tight limits on the number of applications. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you for your time. Monique Webster with SFMTA.
Hi, good afternoon. Monique Webster with the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency. And I'm here to echo MTC's request that there be a provision included in the guidelines to allow for the programming and allocation of funds to ongoing projects and procurements that have already awarded contracts. And the reason why we are asking for this provision is because SFMTA recently awarded a contract to replace our light rail vehicle fleet. This is something that we get an opportunity to do only every 25 years, so it doesn't come along very often. As part of that contract, we had the opportunity to add options to procure additional vehicles that we very, very much need to address current capacity constraints in San Francisco. Our light rail lines are in heavy demand and currently operating at crushed capacities. We were very excited about putting forward this project to compete in the TIRC program. We feel that it really meets the program goals, and MTC has also endorsed it as a regional priority for this program. However, unfortunately, we recently had to move forward to exercise the option on the contract in order to preserve our place in the production line to get these vehicles in the time frame in which we need them. Because of that, we want to make sure that we preserve this project's eligibility in this program so that we can compete for funds and not be excluded. Thank you.
Thank you for traveling up. And Chad and Mitch, did you want to comment on that? We heard that from 2 of our 3 speakers.
Brian, had you wanted to address this at all? First, on behalf
of Chad, nice handoff.
Well, this was I believe that he had some prepared comments. So
sure. On the San Francisco issue, I guess interested in hearing some comment on maybe how this type of situation is handled in a traditional CTC program. On our greenhouse gas reduction funded program, we do have a need and a desire certainly to produce net greenhouse gas reductions, and I understand the explanation for this project, but there is a challenge as well that if you have a fully funded project, it's already awarded. It is a more challenging explanation, I believe, to demonstrate that you're having a net new greenhouse gas reduction if these funds are being essentially supplanted. And perhaps there's a way around it. I'm not sure if this is, again, come up with other projects and more baseline programs, but I don't have a solution at this point in time to that particular issue.
Undersecretary Annis, thank you. Chad, did you want to add to that? I see your light is still on.
Further comment on that?
Great. Okay, good. Other questions from commissioners? I see Vice Chair Dunn and Commissioner Inman and Commissioner Arm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But for the fact that this is an information item, I have about 150 questions for Mitch that I needed to put him on the spot and keep him here, and we're running a little long, so I'll hold those till we actually get to an action item, Mitch. Darn. It's part of your hazing in your new role. In all seriousness, just stay with me for a minute on this one, and keep an open mind. Managed lanes are part of transit. They're a transit delivery system, if you will. I see nothing in the guidelines under eligible projects that would preclude the right managed lane project as helping to assist transit, especially under item 4. So would you take a look at that, especially if it's an interregional managed lane, and we know that our regions are planning them, but for 2 counties in the state. I think every major region is planning them. Look at that as a transit delivery opportunity. I think that you might find that to be an interesting objective. Thank you.
Vice Chair Dunn, thank you. Commissioner Inman?
Chad, I wanted to ask, how did we get to one application per eligible entity?
Yeah, this is really a first round expectation. We don't expect to necessarily have that limitation going forward, but we also are encouraging agencies to be applying together with other agencies, and so we see in many regions that you could have one agency as a lead sponsor on a project that had benefit to more than one agency, and then other projects to be supported by that same agency. So we were looking at one of the evaluation criteria are projects that are supported across the region, and so we have MOUs, for example, in Southern California that have been adopted by multiple agencies in support of projects. The ability to apply for 1/3 of the entire available funding with a single project was basically was seen as putting a fairly high amount onto any single agency, and so the 1/3 amount was part of that as well.
Well, but one guy's number 2 that he doesn't turn in might actually reduce more greenhouse gas emissions than another guy or gal's number 1. So I have a little bit of a hard time with that if our primary objective is really to get the biggest bang for our buck in terms of using these dollars wisely to reduce emissions. So I think we really want to think about that. And while we do, we have experience where we've done trade corridor improvement funds, and we ask our partners along those corridors to help us prioritize. There might be some good models, but if I only get one vote, and I'll use my fellow commissioners as an example, it's probably going to be tough for me to partner with someone else unless they partner exactly back with me in a mirror image. Otherwise,
everybody with only one is going to really kind of think myopically, I think, about their region, and we won't have the interregional connectivity that we really need. So I would encourage us to really look at, is that arbitrary number of applications, and I think Laurel, who had 784 applications on the active transportation, I'm sure you're trying to avoid that in a short amount of time, but I think we might want to rethink that.
Requirement for geographic equity, and so that was another thing, another part of our thinking, that limiting the number of applications is going to help us reach geographic equity, and that in addition to the relatively small size of funding available in this first cycle compared to the cost of some of these.
But there's disadvantaged community requirements too, and those are not necessarily the same geographic boundaries. So I just think let's be open to some flexibility, maybe.
Commissioner Arp and then Commissioner Gilmetti.
I know time is going, so I'm going to keep my comments short. I fundamentally support this program. I supported it during the legislative process. I think some of the comments here are well taken. I just think that it's incumbent upon us as a community and the world at large to be cognizant that, I mean, in my opinion, the cap and trade has a fundamental flaw in what the final product was, and that is that there isn't any real legitimate place for road pavement rehab to get any funding in this in the overall cap and trade program. Not trying to take anything away from this little 10% piece of it. There was a very good coalition that support very good, solid evidence of how road repavement and rehab, particularly in urban areas, when integrated with transportation-oriented development and transit corridors, could reduce greenhouse gas substantially. It was. We basically didn't really end up with anything out of it, and when you consider that the price of gas is going up 10 to 15% right now, or 10 cents right now, and it's going to go higher, a lot of it is being paid for by drivers at the pump, and we can't point to anything on the roadside of cap and trade that says this is where some of your money's going, and I think that's going to be a problem down the road from a public perception standpoint.
And in 2 minutes, I'm going to have to step out, so just to foreshadow, Vice Chair Dunn will continue to lead the discussion. Commissioner Gilmetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since I live in San Francisco, I'm having trouble understanding the request. Is it, and I'm just going to paraphrase, is it the cart before the horse? In other words, they've gone out, made a public demonstration. Mayor Lee announced they were buying a fleet of light rail vehicles, et cetera. But we haven't got the program started yet. So could someone fill me in how it fits back into this program?
That's essentially my understanding. I can leave it to them to provide some more details.
Who's going to provide more details?
Ann Richmond, I think they're calling for you.
Or Monique.
Thank you for coming up today and for stepping forward.
That's Monique.
Hi, Monique Webster with SFMTA. Yes, so the replacement vehicle contract was awarded. That was awarded back in, I believe it was September, October, and that was the announcement. And there were a small number of expansion vehicles that were also included in that base contract. The option that we're talking about, which we had hoped to put forward, has not yet been exercised, but it will be very, very shortly.
But you ordered those based on the fact that MTA has the money to pay for them, correct?
For the base contract, yes. This option, we are working with MTC on essentially what is a loan of funding that was previously programmed to replacement vehicles to allow us to exercise this option and move forward.
I think I understand it.
Thank you.
All right. Any more comments, questions? All right, we'll move on our agenda. Next up That was an information item. So next up, item number 23, results of the 2014 statewide local streets and roads needs assessment. Carrie.
Commissioners, agenda item 23 is an information item. The 2014 California Local Streets and Roads Needs Assessment is a culmination of the original assessment in 2008 and subsequent 2010 and 2012 updates. The needs assessment addresses the conditions of local streets and roads and identifies the required rehabilitation and maintenance costs for the next decade. Margot Yap of Nicholas Consulting will present the results of the 2014 California Local Streets and Roads Needs Assessment.
Thank you, Carrie. I've got with me today Jennifer Whiting and Kiana Buss as well from the League and CSAC in case there are any questions. And I do promise to keep it short. I know it's kind of late in the day. Some of you have seen a version of this presentation before. We've been up here a couple of times. And as you know, what we're trying to talk about is the local streets and road system. And I'd like to start the presentation off with this slide because it's not just roads. It includes the bicycles, it includes the sidewalks, pedestrian facilities, it includes the storm drains. There are many, many things that are included in the local streets and roads network. And so what we've been trying to do every 2 years since 2008 is to try and get a status of what are the conditions statewide, is there a shortfall? How much money do we need? And if there is a shortfall, how much is that? So what I'm going to do today is really give you a brief recap of where we are in 2014. As a reminder, I'd like to start off the presentation showing out how much of the California's road system is composed of local streets and roads. It's about 80%. And for most of the traveling public, that's not something that they're aware of. But when you add up all the miles that the cities and counties own and maintain, it's quite significant. And the next question we ask ourselves is, well, how does a local road system fit into the overall transportation network? And there's many ways. I've started this presentation before in the past by saying that, when I open up my front door in the morning, the traveling public is going to be working on a local road system, whether you're going to drive to work, take the bus, ride your bicycle, walk, you're going to be using part of a local facility. And if we look at all the parts of where the local system fits in, well, in terms of freight, we talked about freight earlier in the agenda. Well, the first and last mile, that's a local network. For active transportation, we've spent many minutes this afternoon. Again, that's part of the local street network because it accommodates the bicycles, the pedestrians, the handicapped. We also talked about transit. Well, buses, shuttles, taxis, they all need the local system to operate on. And then very importantly, I think, the environmental considerations. The storm drain system actually has a big impact on water quality in the state, and that's a big concern to many agencies. And then finally, in terms of reduction of greenhouse gas, we've talked about congestion management at the local network, traffic signals, alternate modes, new paving technologies. All of these also contribute to reducing greenhouse gas. So where are we in 2014? Well, as you know, we've talked about a term called the Average Pavement Condition Index, and that's a scale from 0 to 100, with 100 being the best and 0 being the worst. And in 2008, when I made this presentation, the overall state network was about 68, and the local street network, And in 2014, we've dropped down to about 66. So it has sort of stabilized in the last couple of years as an average. But when you look at it at a county by county level, the results are kind of stark. Here, if you look at this, all the green counties are the counties where the pavement condition index is 71 and above, and then the blues are sort of what we call at risk, and then the red ones are in poor condition. This is in 2008. So 6 years down the road, this is where we are. And you can see there's very few green counties today. In fact, 54 counties in California are either at risk or in poor. And that's a big drop. So even though the average doesn't show a big drop, you can see that these conditions are deteriorating at the city and county level. So what's a failed road? I think one of the metrics that we try to share with the traveling public is that this is a failed road. This is actually a 4-lane arterial. Unfortunately, not very far from my office. I didn't have to go too far to take these pictures. And what we're projecting is that in 10 years, the percent of the road network, the local street network, almost a quarter of it will be in this condition. in 10 years. And that's a very dramatic metric that we are trying to get our arms around. The other component that we wanted to bring with you today is bridges. 50% of California's bridges are owned by cities and counties, and that's over 15,000 local bridges. And when we look at the bridges, the big part, I think the startling part for all of us is that almost half of them, or actually more than half of them, are more than 50 years old, and they require some form of rehabilitation or replacement. And when you consider the fact that as an engineer, as a bridge engineer, most of the design lives are 50 years, then we know that more than half of bridges have exceeded the design life. So that's something that's fairly critical. The shortfalls, and I think this is the money part that we all try to look at, is when we add up what the total needs are for the entire network, it's about $108 billion. We've broken it out into three components: the pavements, the bridges, and then the operational, the safety and regulatory components. And we look at the funding that's available, 29.7, and so it's pretty simple math. We end up with a shortfall of about $7.8 billion. And that's $78 billion, excuse me, $7.8 billion a year. What we tried to do this year was to try and look at it a little bit differently. We said, well, let's look at the pavement shortfalls. And this is an example of a map by Assembly District. I believe you have copies of these handouts in front of you by Senate as well as Assembly District. And I'm just going to share the Assembly District for you. You can see that in the rural parts of the state, that's where the biggest shortfalls are, just for the pavements alone. Interestingly enough, in both the Bay Area and Los Angeles, in the Southern California area, you'll see that the shortfalls are smaller, and a lot of it has to do with the population base. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about where the money goes. This is a chart that shows a trend of the sources of all the funding for local agencies. The blue at the bottom is federal money, and I think this is another thing, is that most local agencies get 10 to 13% for federal. The red is state, and that's almost all gas tax, and we have talked a lot about gas tax today, and I wanted to share some implications of that. And then the green is the local money, and there is probably about somewhere in the order of 30 to 40 different sources, but about half of it is some sort of local sales tax. So the key here, I think, is that when we rely, more than half of the funding comes from the gas tax, and we just heard today's projections that it's going to drop by almost 50%, those are going to be huge ramifications for a local agency. The other thing we looked at, and this is a chart that I borrowed from the Caltrans Division of Budgets that they did a presentation on. I updated the numbers a little bit. I talked to the guy next to my office, and I asked him how much he spent on all these items, and I added them up. And we find that of all the gas taxes, and this is, of course, last year's gas tax, not with the drop that we have, it's remarkably small compared to how much we spend on cable TV, on our cell phone, or even Ryan's coffee habit. I was actually shocked at how much he spent on coffee. I don't drink coffee myself, so I guess I didn't know. But you can see that, from a public's point of view, or from the layman's point of view, the gas taxes doesn't really add up to a huge amount when we compare to all the other monthly bills that we have. We also, in our report this year, tried to look at potential funding sources. We looked at ways of first stretching the existing dollars that we have by applying new technologies, and we figured that would bring about $900 million a year. But the rest of it, you can see, is that we've tried to look at different ways. If we could restore the gas tax to 1994 levels, that brings up a lot, about $1.7 billion to local agencies. That's significant. If we could index the gas tax, if we could raise the gas tax by 10 cents a gallon, all of these are measures that we look at that would somehow try and bridge that funding shortfall that we have. You notice that the mile-based fee is down there. We don't know what that would bring, so we've left it as an unknown. I did want to address one thing. I think we're often asked, well, if you're a local agency, why don't you just raise your sales tax? And we had a update from the Self-Help Coalitions this afternoon. There are mostly rural counties left that don't have a sales tax. And when you add them all up, that's the last line on the bottom, but 15 counties, you'll see that they don't raise very much, simply because of the population does. A Del Norte County, a Mendocino County, it adds up to about $300 million. That's a far cry from what we heard earlier, which is about $3.4 billion So I don't think we can expect that the additional counties, when they get a new sales tax, that they're going to be able to leverage as much as the first lot of counties have. So I think briefly to summarize, we don't have good news to report today. We've got a local road network that's deteriorating, and by 2024, we're going to see it get a lot worse. It's going to get a lot worse in terms of condition. The unfunded backlogs continue to grow. A quarter of the roads we think will be in failed condition, and the similar conclusions for all the bridges, safety, and regulatory things. We need about $7.8 billion a year. We know that's money that's not going to be easily found, and so I think what we would like to leave the Commission with is that this is a very important part of the transportation system overall. The economy depends on it, local traveling public depends on it, our residents and our visitors. We need to look at some sort of sustainable revenue source, and I think sustainable is the key word. And of course, I want to echo one of the earlier presentations that the Californians, we need to work together to find a way to fund our local streets and roads. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions on the presentation? Yes, Mr. Gilmetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Margaret, that was a great presentation, and I really thank you for these exhibits. I think Senator Bell in the 15th Senate District is going to be interesting to find. He needs about $1.5 billion. And Assemblymember Frazier in the 11th Assembly District needs about $1 billion. So hopefully we can share this information with the two chairs of the committees in the legislature. So thank you very much.
Very good.
Just to report on that, Senator Bell was given the maps earlier this week and was impacted by seeing the numbers. We'll be meeting with Assemblymember Frazier in the next couple of weeks.
Could you identify
this makes a big difference to them when they find out what the deficit is in their particular district.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting it together. Kiana, thank you very much.
Very good. Any other comments? Mr. Art.
Yes, I echo Commissioner Gilmetti's comments. This is really well done. I would hope that all of us within our circles of influence and however else we can spread the message can, I think you've done some great job here with some graphics that really tell the story. It's a good lesson for all of us about how, we can more effectively tell the story about what the need is, because we're not getting it done collectively throughout the state. So well done. I'm going to plagiarize you extensively.
Excellent. Mr. Medaffer and then Mr. Asimi.
Thank you very much. I just want to commend CSAC and the League of Cities and the effort. I've seen this presentation several times, and every time I just get more and more frustrated. And I would agree to echo what Commissioner Arp was just talking about. If you guys could schedule, and I realize how busy you all are, if you could end up meeting with all 80 members of the Assembly individually and all 40 members of the Senate and walk them through this presentation, you will have done an incredible service to members of the legislature. So it's not just Senator Bell and Assemblymember Frazier that understand it, but they've also seen it firsthand. And, to the extent that, obviously at the League and at CSAC with mayors and council members and supervisors, this is a story that they too should be sharing with their state representatives, and that will help us in trying to do our job as well, because clearly, as we've seen, Michael Coleman gave the report last week at the League of Cities, with the gas tax going down, public works officials, whether it's in counties or in cities, are going to start clamoring for money because what they budgeted is not what they're going to get because of the price of gas, which is great for consumers, but it's going to be really bad for roads.
Thank you. Mr. Asimi?
Great presentation. I'm also going to plagiarize this and share it to everybody in my circle of influence, including the media and members of the legislature that I have a close relationship with. We need more funding, and this clearly illustrates a picture is worth 1,000 words. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Mrs. Inman.
I just want to encourage Commissioner Medaffer to share this tomorrow with his kickoff meeting, because I think this helps present the case.
Well, I think that's something we could certainly add to a future agenda. We're going to try to, we've already got 6 hours budgeted. I'm hoping we can end within that time frame. But I agree with you, Commissioner Inman, this would be an outstanding report.
And Commissioners, Stephen Keck may be able to just fold a little bit, like a one line in, at least to give reference to this report.
Great.
I know.
Thank you all. And thank you, ladies. We have one public comment from Jeannie Wardwaller. Jeannie, come on up. This is not an action item, just an information item, so
I'll be quick.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, this is really low for me. All right, thank you for hearing me again. Commissioners, Jeannie Wardwaller with the Safe Routes to School National Partnership, and I also really appreciate this report and the work of the cities and counties and of Margot. I just want to make a plug, also kind of tying all the threads together that we've been talking about today, that maintenance, repaving, restriping is a key opportunity to include safety and connectivity for pedestrians and bicyclists. And so I want to, connect all those things that we're talking about: public health, safety, walking and biking, and climate change. Along with this maintenance, there's a key opportunity, really some cheap, cost-effective improvements that improve safety for everyone and really maximize those limited dollars that we're so frustrated that we need to spend as wisely as possible. So thank you.
Thank you again very, very much. Excellent presentation.
Madam Chair, if I could just remind the Commission, we have this room until 5:30. We still have a number of agenda items to go through, so if I could.
Thank you. And I'm going to exercise, with your permission, I'm going to exercise Chairman's prerogative and move us to tab number 43, item number 43, first quarter fiscal year 14-15 project delivery report, and ask Stephen Mahler to start us off.
Yes, Commissioners. This is an outcome of the delivery committee. The committee has been meeting, and one of the things that the committee was asked for is an improved and more readable and easy to use quarterly delivery report. The department has spent a lot of time improving and upgrading their report. I have to commend them. They did a very good job. And Jim Davis will present you their first effort at this report. Just a reminder, this is a work in progress.
She has to recuse herself.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you. My name is Jim Davis, and I'm the Capital Outlet Support Program Manager. One of the things I want to clarify from earlier with Stephen Keck's presentation, on the COS reductions, we've actually reduced staffing over 3,200 in the last 7 years, or by 25%. With regards to the report itself, I want to provide some context to the changes of the report. The report has been updated to comply with Senate Bill 46, which required the Department and the Commission to develop a plain language report to increase transparency and accountability. The report will continue to improve as we get feedback. Caltrans is also identifying projects to be placed in a watch list to ensure no surprise reporting to the Commission. The watch list is dynamic and will change from quarter to quarter. It is our intent that the Commission will see the project on the watch list prior to seeing a request for supplemental funds. However, there may be some projects that need supplemental funds to award that occur in between quarterly reports. We are looking for other ways of providing you a heads up in case this does occur. It is anticipated that some projects on the watch list will not require supplemental funds due to proactive management. If I could refer you to page 1 of the report, one of the things that we are doing is identifying project milestones and accomplishments. And for a time, I'm just going to highlight one. The first innovative construction manager general contractor contract was awarded for the Ferguson Slide on Route 140. And this is a huge success for the department to get forward on that project. On page 2 are performance measures. And Caltrans is reporting on a total of 9 measures. And these are a summary of really pages 8 through 16. 3 measures indicate risk, and the other 6 measures on track to meet the performance measure goal. The 3 measures at risk are all related to projects in the contract for delivery, and I'll be following up in a minute on those. On page 3 of the report is the watch list, and the watch list is broken into budget risk and schedule risk. In the past 5 years, 97% of construction projects were completed within Commission's capital allocation and Caltrans' delegated funding authority. Currently, Caltrans is working on 657 projects valued at $11.2 billion under construction. We've identified risk on 21 projects, or 3%, in construction. Risks have also been identified on 8 projects in pre-construction for contract award. In the future, we're going to develop a dollar exposure to be able to convey that dollar amount to the Commission. 7 of the 21 construction projects identified are either completed or near complete. Based on these claims in progress, the projects are likely to need supplemental funds to settle the contractor's claims. The amount of final compensation is under negotiation as Caltrans evaluates and determines the merit of all claims. The report provides a brief narrative of the subject of the claims. More detail and description of the claims will be provided at the time the supplemental funds request is submitted, and after Caltrans has had a chance to fully evaluate and substantiate any request to be brought forward. 14 of the 21 construction projects have identified cost pressures on projects that are in construction or in progress. In addition to the 21, we have 8 identified projects which have been delivered but may need additional funds to be awarded. On page 6 of the report are the schedule risks. In managing delivery, Caltrans is taking intelligent and agreed-upon risks to deliver projects faster. In the past 9 years, Caltrans has delivered 2,389 projects out of 2,408, or 99.2%. Caltrans currently has 343 projects valued at $2.6 billion in our contract for delivery. We've identified 17, or 5% of the projects at risk in the delivery contract. 9 contract for delivery projects have been identified as high risk. 5 of those are targeted for probable failures, or about 2% of the program. 8 contracts for delivery projects have been identified as moderate to low risk. The last point I want to make is on page 16, and I think this is a real success story, and then we report on the closeout of completed projects. 8 STIP projects were completed in the first quarter. The expenditures were $129 million versus a budget of $134 million, or basically 97%. 35 SHOP projects were completed in that same quarter with an expenditure of $316 million versus expended budget of $328 million, or basically 96%. This concludes my remarks.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any comments?
Just a quick one. As I think this was the committee that I was railroaded into being chair of. Actually, I'm happy to do it. You guys have done a good job here. This is a real good step in the right direction. I think it is a work in progress. I made a couple of comments or suggestions about things you could do down the road to provide clearer information as well. But this is a good move, and I think it gives us an opportunity or a tool to try to spot some of the concerns before it lands in our lap. And it doesn't mean that the news will always be any better. Hopefully we can work on that aspect of it as well. But this is good. I appreciate the fact that you guys have put this together.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. All right, moving us back now to item 24, briefing on the Health in All Policies Task Force. Carrie.
Commissioners, agenda item 24 is an informational item. California's Health in All Policies Task Force was established by executive order in February 2010 and affirmed by the legislature in 2012. The Health in All Policies Task Force is charged with identifying priority programs, policies, and strategies to improve the health of Californians while advancing state sustainability goals. Julia Kaplan, representing the Health in All Policies Task Force, will present an overview of the mission and goals of the Health in All Policies Task Force and their efforts to date.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioners. Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me your time. And I've just been going through my talking points and figuring out what I can cut, so I really want to honor and value the time that you're giving me. I'm the lead facilitator for the California Health in All Policies Task Force, which both Caltrans and the California State Transportation Agency are a part of. And I facilitate this work on behalf of the Department of Public Health for the state, and I appreciated Executive Director Will Kempton's comments about the value of the role of facilitators. You have 3 documents that I just want to point out. You have a fact sheet in your briefing packets about the task force. These are also in the back. You have a kind of glossy 4-page document about the concept of health in all policies, and also the task force's action plan on active transportation. And let me get my There we go. And I'm here to share information about work that a variety of state agencies are taking on that closely aligns with the active transportation work that you all are engaged in. CTC is taking important leadership in promoting walking and biking and addressing safety concerns, and I want to give you the message that you're not alone at the state in doing this, and that many of us are working alongside of you, including many at the state level. And I'd also like to highlight some opportunities for the CTC in this regard where I think we can work in partnership in the future and where we already are. Health in all policies is a concept that's about embedding health and equity principles into decision making across policy areas. And it's not about creating new institutions or new bureaucracy, but really about transforming what we already have to get better results. I'm going to skip this slide because I think this information was mostly described. This is just a picture of the logos of our members. It's a very diverse membership on the task force. And the concept of promoting health and equity across policy areas is growing, and so I want to bring that information to you that we've really seen a tremendous trend around this over the last 5 years at the state and also at the federal level. And I want to point out just a few examples, and I'll start at the bottom of this slide with the CTC, the work that you all are doing through the Active Transportation Program and also through the Regional Transportation Plan Guidelines. In 2010, this commission updated the guidelines to integrate SB 375 and the requirements to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And as a result, the guidelines have significant health co-benefits, including promoting active transportation. Also at the federal level, the federal DOT is involved in the national equivalent of the Health in All Policies Task Force. And Caltrans has a new mission statement with a goal of safety and health that includes talking about active transportation. So we're seeing this pop up all over the place. As a public health practitioner, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the health impacts and concerns around active transportation. And the gist of this slide is that we're facing a major health crisis. It costs a lot of money. Physical inactivity is a major cause of poor health, and people spend a lot of time in cars. This contributes to physical inactivity. For example, the average commute in California is nearly an hour round trip. But the good news is that this is changing and Californians are walking and biking more. But the big question that I've heard raised many times today is this safe? And in fact, traffic fatalities and injuries disproportionately impact bicyclists and pedestrians. And in addition to that, among bicyclists and pedestrians, seniors and children are particularly vulnerable, and low-income communities and communities of color are most impacted by traffic injuries and fatalities. They're also less likely to have the safety infrastructure that we've been talking about. So this is a big equity issue. The task force decided to take on active transportation as a priority across agencies, and I'm talking about agencies like Housing, EPA, Health, Land Use Planning, the Department of Education. You have the action plan in front of you from the task force, and it includes a table that I encourage you to look at with a long list of commitments made by over 15 different state entities. These include things all of the items on that list are things that are being done with no new funds, so they're being done because they meet the goals of those agencies involved. It doesn't add any new programs. It's focused on improving existing work. And it was developed with strong support from Secretary Brian Kelly and other leadership at the California State Transportation Agency. Actually, Under Secretary Brian Annis was also very involved. And some of the examples, I want to just highlight a couple of examples to really show how this is really supporting, I think, the CTC's active transportation work. The Department of Motor Vehicles has committed to integrating bike and ped safety into their driver's manual. A whole group of 6 or 7 agencies are working to integrate health into school siting decisions and processes to support safe routes to school. And our transportation agency has committed to coordinating a multi-agency working group to address data gaps regarding active transportation, including safe routes to school. I want to call out a few specific opportunities for CTC to partner with the Health in All Policies Task Force. The first is around the ATP, and I'm not here today to comment on the details of how to manage the ATP, but I have a few things to say about it. One is good work. This is so important. We really value your leadership. The second is that we are your partners, and not only has the Department of Public Health participated in grant guideline development and a variety of forms of technical support around this program, but many of our task force members from other agencies are involved as well. And finally, that we're sticking around and will continue to support this program as it develops. It's a complex process, and we bring expertise that we'd like to contribute to the process. CDPH and Health and All Policies staff are involved in providing review of the benefit cost tool that's being developed by Caltrans for the ATP. We're also partnering with the Office of Traffic Safety through the task force on their grant programs to explore how to coordinate and ensure that grant applicants understand the multiple funding streams that they may be eligible for. I also want to talk briefly about the RTP guidelines, and I know that this process is not open yet, but I understand that it will be open in the not too distant future. In the last 5 years since the RTP guidelines were updated, MPOs have been very creative and visionary in their work around promoting safe walking and biking, and there are many new strategies that have been developed and tested. And at this point, I think that the guidelines would benefit from a couple of additions. The first is to lift up the work of the MPOs by including examples of new best practices for promoting safe, active transportation, and also sharing information about tools to measure and track health impacts. And this would also help fulfill AB 441, which was passed in 2012, which asked for this information to be included in the next update. The second would be to include more information and tools specifically for promoting safety, because as more people walk and bike, the safety information is essential. And in closing, I want to offer a commitment to you all. I commit to working with public health experts and partners at the state and local level to ensure that we bring constructive, meaningful input to the RTP guidelines update process and continue to do this in partnership with Caltrans and CTC on the ATP program. Members of the Health and All Policies Task Force across a wide range of policy areas are also committing to exploring opportunities to support healthy and sustainable transportation planning through the upcoming RTP guidelines process. And we'd like to work with CTC staff on this and hope to come back for further discussion with you when the time is right. I think that this is cutting-edge work that we're all engaged in. It's a learning process, and it's exciting, and there's great opportunity for collaboration. So I thank you for your time. My contact information is up here. The last slide includes citations for the data that appears on the slides.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Comments, questions? Yes.
Thank you. And I was encouraged to see on one of your slides the mention of jobs, and I would encourage you to look at the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation. They've done some excellent work on the health risk of poverty, and this is a huge issue for Southern California, as our SCAG region has discovered that 1 in 4 of our children live at poverty level. So I didn't see where the jobs component was expanded at all, but clearly there is an intersection with transportation and a vibrant business community too. So I'd encourage you to take a look if you haven't seen that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have one public comment from Wendy Alfson, California Walks. Wendy, this is an information item, so there's no action today, so short and sweet.
Thank you. I just wanted to suggest to the Commission that an action by the Commission endorsing or supporting the Health and All Policies Task Force, and particularly the Active Transportation Action Plan, would be very timely and helpful. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you very much. All right, we're moving on to an information calendar now. It looks like the next 5 items are information only. Stephen, do you want to kick us off on this?
Just to say that they're information items deemed by staff not to raise any issues and will not be addressed unless a commissioner specifically requests.
Commissioners, obviously there's no comment or questions. Very good. Thank you. So moving down now to item 30, the consent calendar.
Yes, Commissioners. The next 13 items are consent items. The following changes need to be noted. Under tab 40, item 4, Director's Deed 0429496-01-01, and item 6, Director's Deed 011-831-04-01 are pulled. With those changes, staff recommends approval of the consent calendar.
Move approval.
Second.
I heard a motion from Mr. Gilmetti and a second from Mr. Tavallone. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you very much. So that takes us through 42. We're now on to 44, right? Project Business Matters. Yes. Project Business Matters. We've done item 44 or 43, so we're on to 44.
Correct.
Correct. Do you want to take them one at a time, Stephen? Because
Yes.
we do have some recusals on this list.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Item 44 is a $5.5 million supplemental request. This project is on the Marin Sonoma Narrows. It's a brand new bridge being built in the footprint of an existing bridge. It's a pretty complicated process because it's all being done under live traffic. This bridge, the old bridge, is also a cliff swallow nesting ground. When the project was started, the bridge got netted to exclude the swallows, but they are very persistent nesters. Some of them got through the nets, and about 70 birds got entrapped and perished. With that, the local nature community started filing lawsuits against the department. And in order to settle these lawsuits, the department agreed not to be demolishing the old bridge during nesting season, which pushes this project into subsequent construction windows. Ergo, the department needs an additional $5.5 million in construction support dollars. The construction capital dollars are at this point not at risk and are sufficient, but $5.5 million are necessary for the personnel that will have to be working 2 more construction seasons. With that, staff recommends that you approve this supplemental allocation.
I have a motion from Mr. Tavallone, second by Mr. Medaffer. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Any opposed?
How many birds?
About 70 birds.
How much is that per bird?
That's a lot per bird.
Yes.
We could have built condos with this money for those birds.
They are actually providing new nesting grounds, but they refuse to go there. They still want to use the old ones.
Okay, I hear support. Any opposition? And no abstentions? Very good, the motion passes. Looks like item number 45 has been withdrawn. We're into policy matters. Number 46?
Yes, Commissioners. Item 46 is a TCIF baseline amendment agreement approval, and staff recommends that you approve.
Motion from Mr. Tavallone, second from Mrs. Burke. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes. 46. And now on to 47.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would encourage you to consider doing 47 and then 51 in that order, and I will recuse myself from both of those items as my employer, Majestic Realty, owns property immediately adjacent to both of those items.
Thank you for the suggestion. We will wait until you exit the building.
I don't think we should ever play Monopoly with Commissioner Inman.
You're going to do 47 and 51?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take items number 47 and number 51 right after. Very good. Are both of them? Thank you. We have a motion. Do we not want to?
No. You read that book item and
we're good. Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Burke, a second from Commissioner Medaffer. Any discussion, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Mrs. Inman. Very good. Motion passes, and we can bring
Madam Chair,
Fran back in.
if I can just ask staff, is there any reason why we couldn't take the remaining policy matters as a single motion? Any concerns about that? Would you like to ask for any particular item to come off of that?
Which items are you referring to?
From 52 on.
From 46 excluding 47 and 51, which you've already asked about,
48.
through 68.
We've done 46.
Yeah.
Yes.
So starting with number 48.
I think we need to hear item 54.
Okay.
Very good. So why don't we just go through these? Yeah. And then if you wish to pull any of them together, that's just fine with us. So we're on number 48, approval of project for future consideration of funding.
This is the final EIR for the YTI Container Terminal Efficiency Enhancement Program in the Port of LA. The ERI identified unavoidable impacts, and the Port of Los Angeles adopted the statement of overriding consideration, finding that the benefits of the project outweigh the impacts. Staff recommends the approval of this project for future consideration for funding.
Very good. Commissioner Inman moved. Commissioner Burke, second. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Item number 49.
Yes, Commissioners, this is an information item, a STIP amendment for notice. This will probably come back in March on the consent calendar.
So an information item only, great. Item number 50, any comments from Commissioners? Sorry. Very good. Item number 50, City of Salinas.
A baseline agreement amendment, staff recommends approval.
Motion from Assimi, second from Madaffer. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next, item 51 is already been taken care of. 52.
Commissioners, items 52 and 53 are the shop allocations for this agenda. Staff recommends approval of both items.
Move it.
Second.
Motion by ARP, second by Tavoloni. Any comments or questions?
We're speaking faster than you're thinking.
I'm trying to do this right. And all those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion approval for 52 and 53. Item 54.
Yes, Commissioners. Item 54 is an allocation request of $3.75 million from a Park Presidio project's risk reserve. Just a reminder, when the Commission approved the project, there was a risk reserve of $38 million set aside. The Commission has been allocating out of that risk reserve, and this is a request to cover the Park Presidio's fees that are charged against the project that the Department needs to pay for the remainder of this project, and staff recommends that you approve this allocation.
We have a comment from Mr. Gilmetti.
Unless you want to take a motion first, I can comment.
Nope, comments first. Go right ahead.
Obviously, I think most of you know I voted against using this project as a P3, and I thought we were going to be protected contractually so that we wouldn't have any cost overruns. Those were going to be borne by the contractor, the financial contractor. And by looking, by the way, at the quarterly report, it looks like we're going to be seeing something else coming out on a larger scale. What happened to the contract so that the state of California was protected on this on a P3 contract?
And who do you want to answer that question?
Well, maybe Comey. Where'd Comey go?
Comey, would you mind?
Somebody ought to answer it, because this is ridiculous. The state's getting the short end of the stick here.
But just a reminder, this is not against this allocation. This is what you're talking about is into the future.
Right. This is still within the reserves.
Madam Chair, let me ask the Department, does this create any difficulties for you with respect to discussions that you're having with the contractor or anything?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, please.
It's not a cost increase, and I think Bijan might be able to explain this a little better, because we haven't paid on the contract yet. This is not a cost increase. This is part of.
No, Comey, you're not answering the right question. We're not questioning the $3.75 million. We're questioning future things.
Well, on future events, I think, first of all, this is Bijan Sartipi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm the District Director for Caltrans for Bay Area. Potential future items would be subject of a discussion that we're having with the contractor or a disagreement that we're having with the contractor on the notices that they filed of a potential claim. And so in those discussions, we have differing position with respect to what we're being asked in various claims that has been filed. When we come to a conclusion, if there are claims that we do find to be viable and required, we will be bringing those to the Commission, asking for approval for those items. Outside of that,
Bijan, that's not my question. You know, on a regular bid basis, were you actually taking bids on jobs, et cetera? I understand the procedure on claims. This contract was supposed to be a P3 contract where the risk left the state and went over to the P3 contractors. I'm having trouble, and you can explain it to me next month if you want. I'm having trouble finding why there are even discussions about any claims when the contractor was supposed to take all the risk going forward. That's to me what a P3 contract was all about.
Commissioner Gilmetti, we have during the delivery committee's deliberations, the committee has asked to have a special briefing for the committee, especially on this project and especially on what has been happening and on the particular question that you're asking.
Okay.
The department really cannot address these things in an open session. So right now the staff recommends that you approve this measly $3.75 million.
Move approval. We have a motion for approval, a second, a motion by Medaffer, a second by Tavalloni. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed?
No.
Any abstention? Okay, motion passes, 1 no vote. Item number 55.
Yes, Commissioners, items 55 through 57 are action items. These are requests for STIP allocations.
I have a note that that's been withdrawn. Is that not accurate?
There's one item. I would note that there is a change on the change list. There is one item withdrawn off of 55, one project withdrawn off of 55. So with that change, staff recommends your approval of these three.
We have a motion by Mr. Tavalloni, second. By Assimi. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item number 58.
Yes, Commissioners, this also is an action item. This is a request for an allocation out of the Eureka Non-Freeway Alternative Funds. This is for a project in Humboldt County. Staff recommends your approval.
So moved.
Mr. Arp moved. Assimi seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. Number 59.
Yes, Commissioner. Item 59 is a request to allocate a project for 20% greater than what was programmed for. This project was programmed in the shop in April of 2014. When it was designed, it turned out that they needed a different foundation for the retaining wall. This is a slide repair, and the costs are different between the type of wall that was envisioned and the type of wall they need to build. Staff recommends that you approve this allocation.
We have a motion by Mr. Medaffer, a second by Mr. Tavalloni. Mr. Gilmetti, do you have a comment? Because your light is on.
No,
on.
sorry.
Okay, very good. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. On to financial allocations for Prop 1B and TCIF number 60.
Yes, Commissioners. Number 60, 61, and 62 are Prop 1B allocations. Staff recommends approval.
So moved.
Mr. Arp moved for approval. Mrs. Burke for second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes, approving 60, 61, 62. Number 63.
Commissioners, this is an action item to allocate funds for active transportation program projects. This item is a yellow book item, and there's been additional changes. They're listed on the change list. 4 agencies have withdrawn their requests. Staff recommends your approval of this allocation.
Motion by Tavalloni, second by Medaffer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Number 63. Number 64.
Item 64 is a financial allocation for an airport in San Diego County from the airport loan account, from the airport account.
Second.
Aeronautics account, I'm sorry.
We have a motion by Mr. Medaffer in support, I do believe. A second by Mr. Tavallone. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstention? Measure 64 passes. Next item, 65.
Commissioners, items 65 through 68 are time extensions on this month's agenda. And you have the spreadsheet with the staff recommendations. Staff recommends that you approve the 4 items based on the staff recommendations.
Move it. Second.
Motion by Tavallone, second by Assimi. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes 65, 66, 67, 68. Any other matters to come before the Commission? Any additional public comments? Mr. Kempton.
Madam Chair, I just have one item to bring to the Commission's attention. On February 4th, the California Transportation Foundation will be sponsoring its annual Transportation Forum. This is an event that attracts 200 to 300 public and private professionals. There is a very good speaking lineup, including, we think, the Speaker of the State Assembly, Greg Netto, the Acting Administrator of the Federal Highway Administration, the chairs of both the transportation committees, as well as our agency secretary. Should be a very good program. There is information in the back of the room about the event, and I just wanted to call it to your attention. That's February 4th between 10 and 2:30 at the Sheraton Grand here in Sacramento. Thank you.
Very good. Any other items to come before the Commission? Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say for the record one more thank you to Will Kempton for stepping up. Another thank you for Carl Guardino's service as chair for a year. Let the record reflect. Special thank you and congratulations to Susan for her award this evening. And on behalf of Bobby Alvarado and myself, thank you for your vote of confidence. It's going to be a great year. We will adjourn to CTC hearing in March in beautiful Orange County.
That's a guarantee.
Done.
That's a guarantee.
Done.